This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Tech, show number 140, recorded on October 24th, 2013. Here at Home Tech, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversations, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska. Actually, beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska today. Fall is on its way. And we post the show with world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show. Just send me an email, podcast@theaverageguy.tv. Find us on Twitter, just at Jay Collison, or follow the show schedule out there on Twitter at The Average Guy TV. You can also join us for live chat during the show over at theaverageguy.tv/live if you happen to find us on Google Plus or YouTube. The chat window is actually just to the right of the video window. We also have a high bandwidth option on YouTube, so if you want to see a little bit better video version than what we have, head over to theaverageguy.tv upper right-hand corner and click on the YouTube link up there. It'll take you right to the best video you can get out there. Give it a try. Love your feedback. We also have low bandwidth versions if you're on a mobile phone. Just go out to theaverageguy.tv live and watch it there. All right, we got a great show for you tonight. A guy that I met at a Heartland Developer Conference that we had here in Omaha, and we got speaking, and I said, man, I got to have you on the show. David Washington, he's a tech evangelist for Microsoft. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
That's great. We'll introduce Christian as well. Christian makes it back into the show after a week or so off in his studies there in Maryland. Christian, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Good to be on, and looking forward to getting a chance to talk Microsoft.
Yeah, awesome. We've got a Christian's Corner for you, so Christian's got a lot to catch us up on. We're going to do that here later in the show, so hang tight. We'll get around to that. We want to spend the next 30 minutes or so with David. I think he's got his hands full, literally. He's got his hands full with some technology there that I think that we've been talking about now ad nauseum, not really, but ad nauseum for the last couple weeks with the kind of the announcement of the Surface, Surface 2 and Surface 2 Pro. David, you got some stuff there. Let's show us what you got. Just kind of walk through it.
Yeah, gadgets. It's a little tricky to show this stuff, but what I just picked up here is the Surface 2. I made sure to pick up the Surface 2 RT just because it's so thin and beautiful. I like this white color. I've got the touch cover with it, which is awesome. And
now that is a super thin touch cover. That's the first time I've seen that out of the box, and you were just showing. I mean, look at that profile.
Thin. It's like, disappeared, gone.
And you were mentioning the typing. You worked with the team to help with the 2-position kickstand there is nice as well. You work with the team that was working on the touch cover. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So back before August, I just moved to Minneapolis here in August, where I started a job as a technical evangelist. But before then, I was an engineer working on the Windows team, and my team designed a bunch of features to improve touch typing on the touch keyboard in Windows 8.1. So let me just pull this up so you kind of get a sense for what I'm talking about. So, the touch keyboard on screen is what my team worked on. And we were driving a bunch of innovations to make it so you could be sloppy when you're typing on the keyboard, and you get suggestions so you don't have to type all the letters. If you have a Windows phone, you're probably familiar with those suggestions that you can tap on. And as we were designing that, we wanted to not only think about Windows, but think about different hardware implementations too. Because if you think about what this is, this, especially with the new version with over 1,000 sensors in this, it's really very similar to what you would have in a touchscreen. You don't have the same tactile feedback that you get with a clicky keyboard. You have a lot more kind of fuzziness in where you hit. You might hit in between a key, or you might hit the wrong key. You might fat finger it. So what we did is when we were designing the touch experience for the touch keyboard, we also considered this. So what you'll see, it's not the sort of thing where I can demo it just in my setup, but
Yeah, it's a little difficult to do that this way, but yeah,
but
just tell us about it.
what you'll see is when you go ahead and you type on this, and I can open up Twitter, but when you go ahead and you type on the touch key, the touch cover, even if you hit the wrong key, or even if you hit like in the middle between keys, we can still get the right text entered because what we're using the power of the language model on Windows to use linguistic models and autocorrect and suggest the right word, even if you're typing on a physical keyboard, which is something I don't think has been done before ever. So it's the sort of thing you really need to play around with and try. So of course, you can go and buy one of these, or you can go to the Microsoft Store and try it. But it's really amazing. So just so you know, what I'm talking about, on my Surface 2 here in Twitter, I have these three suggestions. That's probably not really focusing that well, but
No, it's
there's
doing okay.
those
Yeah.
three words are those suggestions. So as you type on the touch keyboard or on the touch cover, you get those suggestions, and it's kind of auto completing whether you're typing on a touch cover or the touch keyboard, and it will autocorrect if you have a high confidence candidate, and it makes it so you can really kind of just let loose and type sloppily and still get the right text entered.
And some of the guys are asking about that connection between the keyboard and and the Surface itself. Did that
Yeah.
change at all from the first one, or is that the exact same? Is that making the exact same connection?
So that's something I can't actually speak to. Um, I know that there was some, I think some changes about which bus it used,
Okay.
but in terms of backward compatibility and stuff, I know that you can swap, you can use a V1 touch cover with a V2 and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and I know
um,
they've reduced the price of the version 1 touch covers at
nice,
this
yeah,
point. They're
yeah,
down to about 80 from the
nice,
119 I think they were at.
nice,
Just in Best Buy the other day, and the guy was showing me, oh yeah, the prices have come down. One of the big complaints that we heard about the V1 touch covers, they weren't as durable, I think, as folks were hoping for. And
yep,
as we were listening to, we have in our network, we have a podcast all about the Surface. It's called Surface
hmm
Geeks. And on that podcast, we were talking about this idea of lapability, right? The
yep.
ability to put it on your lap and work with it. Is that version 2 touch cover more rigid? So talk about maybe a little bit about as you see the durability and maybe the
Oh
lapability of
yeah.
it.
Well, when we're talking about durability, sorry about that. When we're
Yeah, no sweat.
talking about durability, the Surface 2 product it's a new product. So, there's a lot that I'm not speaking on behalf of Surface for any
Sure.
reason for anything like that, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of thinking that the team has gone into building this, and they've learned everything they've learned. They've learned everything from the first version to build a new product. So, um, I would expect that you'd get a lot more kind of durable product just when it comes to reliability over time. The other thing that you'll find when you're typing on this is it's a lot smarter. So, with a V1 touch cover, something you may have found is you had to really press hard to get the text entered, right? And I actually sometimes my fingers would get kind of sore because you kind of needed to hit really hard. And that really came down to how due to the low number of sensors, you would lose some of your pressure with every strike. So you really would need to hit hard. So if it was on your lap, the fact that the actual device had a little bit of flex became made it difficult. With the new one, what you'll find is it's a lot more sensitive. And by sensitive, I don't mean that it's getting a lot of accidental types. It's actually the inverse. It's smart. It's smartly detecting how much pressure you're pressing, and it's just getting the right amount of pressure. So even if it's in your lap, you can just kind of nicely dance on top of the keys as if you were pressing a tactile keyboard, which I also like. This is
Oh, nice.
the new
Yeah, very nice. I
colorful.
was going to ask you about that, so I'm glad you
Yeah,
have it.
a tactile keyboard, and because actually that's what's interesting about the V1 touch cover. Even though it didn't have any travel, you'd have to hit it quite a bit harder to actually get the text inputted than you would on a physical keyboard. Whereas with the new one, you can kind of dance your fingertips off the top, and you get that same high word per minute typing that you'd expect from a physical keyboard. The other thing too about lappability is, don't underestimate the power of a kickstand.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is it makes the difference. So when I originally bought my Windows 8 device, I opted for a laptop because I do a lot of coding on the bus and I need to be able to have it stable. And the V1 kind of teetered. It was great if you put it on the table, but it kind of teetered if you were on the bus and you hit a bump or something. So with V2, I'm actually contemplating selling my Vio and getting a Pro 2 or something like that for my coding. So it's definitely lappable. I've used this quite a bit, and this extra angle is just good to have. Even if it's on the table and you just want to watch a TV show or something, it's good to have that. Or if you're standing over it, you're up on a in my kitchen in Seattle. I kind of had a bar that I'd like to stand and use my PC at, and it was a little bit too high, a little bit. The angle wasn't quite right. So with this angle, it's really nice.
We've had a couple folks join us late off YouTube. We're talking with David Washington. He's a technical evangelist for Microsoft. You do work for Microsoft. That was a question
Yep.
some of the folks were asking out of the Minneapolis office. How long have you had and we're talking about the Surface 2 and the Surface 2 Pro. How long have you had those kind of in your possession to be able to work with them?
So this actual Surface 2, they're pretty locked down. So the actual retail units, I didn't get my hands on until the morning of the 22nd. So what was that? Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday morning.
Um, so so yeah, Tuesday. So when you could have gotten them. The thing is, back in Redmond, I had a chance to use prototypes over time and see the evolution of the different products. And the way that you build hardware is you build engineering prototypes, which are kind of proof of concept for the hardware, and then you kind of transition into design verification, where you check all of the kind of nuanced things like the materials and the like nice fit and finish things,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go into actual retail where you fix the last minute changes. So I have had a chance to use them along the way, just due to the nature of my job. But I really like this retail unit. It's really nice.
You were talking about the keyboard, the work that you did for both the physical keyboard on screen, and then you showed the touch cover, the type cover you've got there, the blue type cover you have as
Yeah.
well, right? And
Yep.
and how much is that different than the touch cover? And the same work you did with on screen and touch, I assume it goes to type as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. Something that's interesting is, and we spent a lot of time thinking about this in Windows, is when you're typing on a touch screen or even on a touch cover, it's nice to have that extra help where you have those suggestions popping up, right? But we really need to balance the value of adding a new user interface to you against the possible risk of annoyance, right? So what we found on the touch cover and on the on-screen keyboard is that those suggestions are incredibly useful and incredibly efficient. And even though there's a little bit more noise that you perceive, we did a great job on kind of making sure it wasn't annoying. But even though there's a little bit more noise, that added noise is worth it because um, you really benefit and you're more efficient with those suggestions. The challenge that we had with physical keyboards, like what you might have on your desktop or your laptop, and with stuff like the type cover, is that people are really good at typing on these things, right? Some people can type hundreds of words per minute, and they're already efficient. So we wanted to be able to make the right trade-offs there. So what we did is you don't actually see suggestions when you're typing on these things, when you're typing on a type cover, like you do on the on-screen keyboard or the touch cover. But what you do get is you still get all the power of the language model, and I'll talk a little bit about the language model. But you get all the power of the language model to actually get autocorrections. And autocorrections are those things that you don't really think about, right? like you're typing an email in Gmail or in Hotmail or in Outlook or whatever, and you type TEH and then it says the. And maybe you notice it or maybe you didn't notice it, but you're like, dang, that's what I wanted, right? And on an on-screen keyboard, on your phone or on a tablet, you get those things all the time. On your physical keyboard, on your desktop, you get those maybe 5 to 10% of the time, depending on what type of typer you are. Because if you use desktop productivity software like Word or like, even like Google Docs, like you don't get any help actually. You get some really basic autocorrections, and the way those really basic autocorrections work is there's a hard-coded list of words of common mistakes that people make, right? So TEH to the is a common mistake. People make that. So Word or Google, they have that hard-coded list, and then they'll make an autocorrection based on that mistake. Whereas what the touch keyboard has is a much more advanced linguistic model, where basically it builds a tree of your language, right? If you speak English, it builds a tree of all of the words in your language, and it builds a probability, basically a beam tree, where it trims the tree based on the highest probability word. And what it does is it says, well, 99%, there's a 99% case that you wanted this word instead of this misspelled thing that you put in. So rather than putting the misspelled thing in, it puts the good thing in. And that linguistic model isn't a dumb model. It actually learns based on your typing history and based on the emails that you receive and the emails that you send. So it's actually a learning thing. And so there's a whole kind of iceberg beneath those touch keyboard models. And up until Windows 8.1, those things kind of only applied to on-screen keyboards. With 8.1, you get that on a touch cover, but you also get all the power of those autocorrections on a type cover as well. So that's going to be interesting. That's another thing you kind of just need to play, and then you might think, wow, I'm really fast at typing on this type cover. But the reality is, no, Windows is just really good at helping you type it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a
Yeah,
good story out there because I live in that. I live in Outlook every day. I mean, that's pretty much as a manager. That's pretty much my number one productivity tool in what I do in email. And I see that a lot now. It's correct. It gets gets smart with me and corrects my
yeah.
mistakes. It'd be great on that surface to be able to have the power of that as well. What other things? We've only got you for a few minutes, so I want to make sure we cover a bunch of stuff. What other things are you working on? Technically there with
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Well, right now my job is technical evangelist. So I live here in Minneapolis, and in my day-to-day, I'm, networking with startups and, you know, uh, moonlighting developers and people who are just hobbyists writing apps, and I help make it easy for them to build apps, whether it be giving them guidance on the user experience to giving them technical tips on how to actually plan out their code, to getting them BizSpark or like funding for their uh, cloud backing web services. So I'm kind of a embedded Microsoft resource in the area here. And I don't just stay in Minneapolis, obviously. I saw you in Omaha. So I'm going to give talks. Just last weekend, I gave a talk at Twin Cities Code Camp, and I talked a little bit about how we arrived at some of our designs for Windows 8.1. Uh, and I go to a bunch of schools and help bring students who may not have any experience in the world of mobile app development and help kind of enlighten them to the world of, hey, you can make an app and you can submit it to the store and make money and monetize it and market it. So I do kind of like mini workshops and sessions around the region. I was
Is
just,
Omaha your region?
yeah, so I go down to Omaha
I should get
sometimes.
you down here. We
Yeah,
started at Gallup. We started our own high school internship program this year,
yeah.
and it sounds like that code camp. I wrote that down the other day. I was listening to something and I heard that, and I thought, I had to get Microsoft in to put on a weekend seminar, something along whatever you guys do,
Yeah,
to get the
absolutely.
kids fired up about development.
So yeah, basically, if there's people there, then it's worth it for me to go there. I'm going to South Dakota, for 3 days next week, and
Oh,
that'll
I'm
be cool.
sorry.
No, I'm excited. I'm gonna go to Rapid City and gonna go talk to the South Dakota School of Mines, great
Yeah,
school.
fun school.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of reservations that are doing a lot of app development, which is really exciting too. So I'm excited about that tour. That'll be really cool.
Now for the Windows Phone, and you'd held up your Windows Phone earlier. What do you got there?
So I have a 920. I love this thing.
And
Um, yeah.
no, and so what do you like? What's your favorite? Rattle off a couple of your favorite features.
So before I worked on the touch keyboard, what I worked on in Windows 8 was the high DPI scaling stuff that you see in the Surface Pro and in the Surface 2, by the way, 1080p screen, awesome. Um, so as soon as Nokia came out with a Retina, like high DPI screen, I just had to get it. And the screen on this is awesome. Not only is it higher DPI than the iPhone 4, it's just a beautiful, nicely color balanced, good in the sunlight screen, and I really appreciate that. So the screen is probably my favorite thing about it. The
And
next thing is, oh
oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
The next thing is the wireless charging. I think I might have it over here. So, just being able to just like set this on things is just like, this is my Nokia wireless charging plate.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm never gonna buy a phone again that I have to plug in. Even if there's like five more phones that come out that are better, I'm gonna keep this old one because I don't know about you, but every night I would go and plug in my phone and then like, oh shoot, the cable would fall down. I'm like crawling under the bed and like it's just like, come on, like charging is like the lamest
It,
part of the user
it is
experience.
nice. I had
It
a
should just
Palm
work.
Pre for a
Yeah,
while that had that click in concept, and you just set it on top of the charger and snap right in. You were
yeah,
done. So I don't know why we're not doing that with more phones. I love the fact that that does that on the 920.
yeah, it's great.
Um, do
So
you? Oh, go ahead, Christian.
I'm just curious. You said you were really interested. You really enjoyed the screen on the Surface 2 being 1080p.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could field any comments as to why Microsoft hasn't brought that up to the resolution of the iPad, which gets 2048 by 1536, or even the Galaxy Note, which gets 2560 by 1600.
Yeah. So I can't speak for the engineering team because I don't work there, but I
Sure.
can discuss the topic for those of you who are interested, and I can discuss kind of what my experience when we were planning it in Windows 8. So and I'll first just start by talking about the concept of pixel density, just for folks who aren't familiar. So obviously, pixel density is basically the number of pixels in any given physical screen real estate size. So, on this thing, there's, something like I think 227 pixels per inch. So, um, as you basically as you increase the number of pixels, you have to drive those pixels, right? You have to have more battery life to drive the pixels. You need, bigger batteries. You need to have more aggressive graphics cards. You need to have more CPU to actually fill up all those pixels with more content. So um, the there's a design trade-off. So there's nothing in Windows that prevents people from shipping very high DPI devices. And actually, some of the highest DPI devices that you can buy are actually on Windows right now. Um, the Kira Book is a great high DPI device. There is a great Samsung, which is 4K and 13 inches. There's an awesome 4K, like 20-inch tablet, which isn't as high DPI, but very high resolution. So in terms of Windows, we are set up to support very high resolution 4K, 2560 by 1440 on a 7-inch. So we're very well set up for the very high resolution. The thing there to balance is um, the design trade-off. So when you go ahead and you put 2560 by 1440 on a 10-inch device, then you need to make sure that the thing's not going to get hot, and you need to make sure that it's not going to kill your battery, and it's going to be the right price. So Apple is interesting, right? I don't know if I don't. There's probably some people out there who bought the iPad 3 when it came out, right? That device was hilarious, right? Because it was more expensive than the iPad 2. The battery life was worse. It took longer to charge, and it got hot. So when it comes to design compromises, it was like not a good design compromise in my opinion. Obviously they've done better with their engineering processes, and they've got it to the place where with the iPad 3 it's thin and it has good battery life. The iPad 5 or whatever the number is these days, it's thin and it has good battery life and stuff. But one of the most favorite devices that people picked up was the iPad mini, which is low res. And of course, fanboys are heralding, it's got to have Retina, but most of the people that have those iPad minis, they actually still don't even know the difference. So I know I'm a pixel junkie. I know I care. I want it to be great, but you need to balance the investments that you make in pixels and actually all of the hardware costs associated with lighting those pixels and other physical attributes of the display. Like I think Microsoft has done a much better job in bonding the LCD display to the glass. So, the iPads, you actually have a little bit of separation and you get glare and it looks a little bit funky, but on the surface, the pixels look like they're just floating right on top of the screen. So, and then there's viewing angle, which is a factor, color balancing, there's being able to see it in the sun. So I know iPad in the latest announcement they talked about improving some of those things, but we'll just have to see how well they do. So what's another kind of comment on iPad specifically, since you brought it up, is Android doesn't have this problem, but Apple has a kind of good and bad where they have that 1024 by 768 design resolution for their applications, right, for iPad apps. And every app that you create is that size. So they only have a 1x scale and a 2x scale. And that's actually great. It's really convenient for them. But they actually don't, if they want to ship high resolution devices, they actually don't have a choice. Maybe for the iPad mini, they might want to ship a lower resolution device, but given their platform, they don't have adaptive layouts. They don't have fluid scaling. So they're kind of painted in the corner there. So that's probably why they didn't go ahead and ship a higher resolution iPad mini, because they had to go all or nothing. They couldn't do like an in-between resolution. They have to do that high DPI.
David, I want to ask you what we're coming up on the end of your time. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks in advance. You
Oh, yeah,
are
sure.
giving up very critical time, which we weren't aware of. It's your anniversary, so congratulations. Happy
Oh,
anniversary
thanks.
tonight.
Thanks.
And you're a true geek of jumping on a podcast, even though it's your anniversary. So tell your
Sure.
wife, thank you very much.
I
We're going to
will.
let you go. I'm going to ask if you'll come back. It'd be great to have you back on the
Sure.
show to talk some more detail. Maybe we get a little bit more time with you. I think you've got really great in-depth knowledge in that, and it's just great to hear from you on that. So
Sure.
thanks in advance for coming out. I do want to go back to kind of wrap up the keyboard conversation. One of the things
Yep.
I've noticed about the keyboard on Surface 2, they're backlit.
Yeah.
And those version 1 was not backlit, right? I mean, we're talking
Yep.
about little tiny sensors in there. I've got an inexpensive Asus laptop running Windows 8.1 now at this point, not backlit, and I wish it was. That little type cover has got a backlit keyboard. Have you used it in the dark, and is it backlit enough?
I have. It's awesome. So let me see if I can turn a light off here when we get this going.
Just don't turn your internet off.
There we go. So you can see that a little bit more. So yeah, it's awesome. It's like I have a Vio Pro 13, which has a backlit keyboard. But the thing I don't like about the Vio Pro is there's a little bit of leakage of the light um, throughout the frame of the device, which bugs me because I'm a details guy. Whereas this thing is just perfect. It's weird. It looks like the letters were written on with light, which is just like weird. Like it seems like it defies a little bit of physics. Um, but yeah, it stays bright. You can use it, and you've got that. the type cover. I've got a nice blue type cover here too, and this guy is nicely backlit too. So you can use it in the dark, and it looks good. Kind of makes it look a little bit like a science fiction display, like you're on the bridge of the Enterprise or something. But that's why I like it.
Yeah. Then one more question before we let you go. Since you're a developer and you're making your way around the country talking about development, how much of the stuff that you do can you do on just the Surface 2 with it, with it just being Windows 8 RT?
Yeah.
How much development can you do if you're in the Microsoft ecospace?
Sure. So all of the apps I write are in HTML5. So sometimes I'll whip together a little app concept just like in JS and just like run it up and just like do a little, even some crazy touch stuff. You could all do with HTML and JavaScript, which is really cool. So I'll do that. Also, on a Surface RT, you've got remote desktop. So you can connect to a PC that you have at home, or what I do actually is I have Windows Azure online, and you can spin up VMs and just like remote desktop in there, and you always have a VM running with your coding
Oh,
environment
all
on it.
right.
It's kind of cool because like you can just like throw your laptop away and it doesn't matter because like you have your actual development environment running in the cloud, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
maybe next time we have you on, we'll talk more about Azure, and especially in the area of remote desktop, because I think
sure,
from my community standpoint, the guys that listen to this show, if we did anything with Azure, it's going to be to spin up a desktop, right,
yep,
and
yep,
have some power in the cloud to do
yep,
exactly what you're talking about. So maybe we'll bring you back here in a couple weeks and have you talk about that.
yeah,
We've been talking with
sure
David
thing.
Washington. He's a technical evangelist with Microsoft. It's his anniversary, so we are going to let him go. David, thank you for coming on the show. Certainly appreciate it, and
Thanks, Jim.
we'll catch up with you. I've got some other business. I need to get you to Omaha to meet some kids and talk about code. So we'll have you to Omaha. Thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, Jim, and thanks, Christian. Have a good
Thanks.
night.
Take care.
Have a great
Yeah,
evening.
bye-bye.
All right, very cool.
Yeah, no, I was happy to hear his response on the resolution thing because I know it's one thing, especially Gary always gets very flustered about is the resolution, and I thought that was an interesting response because that's the first time I've heard there was some good technical backup to his explanation, so I appreciated that a lot. So,
Yeah, when I met David in this interview, and actually, if you go out to our YouTube page, so youtube.com, or go out to theaverageguy.tv/YouTube, you can look. Was that the account I did him on? That might be different. Anyways, I did an interview. If you just Google Microsoft David Washington, you'll actually see an interview that I did with him at the Heartland Developer Conference. And when I met the guy, I thought, hey, this guy knows some stuff.
yeah,
I mean, he's in the trenches. And I said, hey, would you come on my show? He was like, absolutely. And in his new role as an evangelist, of course, he kind of gets paid to go around and do those kinds of things.
sure.
Which would be a great job, wouldn't it? I mean, just say good things about your product all over. I'm kind of do that for Gallup, so I'm a little bit of a Gallup evangelist as well. But yeah, so it coincided. I was going to try and get him on before the Surface announcement, and I'm actually kind of glad I waited.
Sure.
He had him in hand, and honestly, I think I'm going to pick up the Surface 2. The RT, not the Pro, but the RT. They take an
Mhm.
RT out of it, but from here on out, we'll just call it the Surface 2. I think that's going to end up in my hands in the month of November, and I'm going to come back from Redmond with a certified, Redmond copy of the Surface 2.
Yeah, there's an Asus tablet. I'm trying to find where the heck I put it, but there was an Asus tablet that came out not too long ago that I saw in Newegg that was around the same price range. It was $400 and actually had some pretty interesting specs. I'm trying to pull it up here, but it's one of their convertibles where the tablet detaches from the keyboard entirely and all that. And it was pretty impressive. 11 hours of battery life. Nice looking form factor. I think it was a 10-inch some screen. I'm trying to again find it right now, so give me a second. But I wonder where Microsoft is going to start to draw the line between the OEMs that they're working with to put together hardware and software configurations, and then their actual their own product offerings being the hardware and software bundled together. Because I think that's got to be a big marketing thing for them to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And I don't know. I don't know where that's going to land and how they're going to do it. Certainly, they have not. In the world of RT, they've lost all their vendors. They're the only one, besides what we found out this week, besides Nokia,
Sure.
with the Lumia 2520, that will come with RT on it. There's only two left. So if you're gonna get an RT tablet, you're gonna get it from Microsoft. You're gonna get it in the future here from Lumia. And I don't know if they'll sell many of those, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So actually, literally in the time in which I first looked at this when the show started and when he left, it has sold out on Newegg. So they
Wow.
must be selling very well.
What was the retail on it?
It's $399, so it's $400, right? This is called the Asus Transformer book. It's a T100 Intel quad core with 2 gigs of DDR3, 64 gigabyte SSD, 10.1-inch IPS panel, Windows 8.1 with the dock. I mean, it's pretty beefy for the price point. Now, I would argue that one big thing that has changed in here. What is the new Surface 2 go for? Not the Pro version.
$449.
Okay, so that's actually a big advantage point for the new. Well, now what's the right?
Surface 2.
The art right.
Yeah.
Is that they actually this Asus has the resolution that the original Surface RT had of 1366 by 768. So that's a big resolution jump. Again, though, this is an IPS panel, so it probably looks pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Comes built in with Office and USB 3, 11 hours battery life. It's detachable.
And it is RT or not?
No, this is
No.
this is
Full.
Amazon's. This is the Windows 8.1.
Okay.
I would
That's pretty
imagine
good.
it's
That's pretty good for
yeah.
full version of Windows.
Yeah, and it's an IPS multi-touch display too, so
Yeah.
pretty cool. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stuff plays out. And I'll be honest, I've probably been failing my geek following in the sense that I've been pretty detached from hardware with all the stuff I've been doing at work has been like highly esoteric software-based stuff. So I've been kind of all over I mean, just to show you how desperate hardware things have been these days, my latest hardware endeavor was to have a fan sent to my dorm room to put as an exhaust fan on this thing because I have a micro ATX box here, and I'm burning up one of my old 4850 cards in here. And the CPU and stuff and the GPU. The GPU was idling at like 75 one day I came back and I was like, whoa, that's got to change, right? So I was able to, of course, I get this fan back and screws were not included, so my dad forgot to put the screws in the box. So I was able to actually, and this is where everyone's just going to do a face palm, but I have these little flexible bungee cords with hooks on them, and I had a little larger one that it fit perfectly wrapped snug around the fan, and I hooked it into the back of the case and slapped down a little duct tape at the bottom, and she's running brilliantly. I
You
mean,
had to say duct tape.
Yeah. Core temps are down to my CPU is down to 26 Celsius, which for AMD is pretty brilliant, and for air cooling, and my GPU is down to 45. Now you also have to keep into consideration that I strategically placed the box right next to the open window where it's 40 degrees out, and there's a bunch of cool air pouring in where that exhaust fan is now, so it's benefiting greatly. But
Nice.
that's about the extent of hardware for me these days.
And that works well from the dorm room because you're just really there mostly during the cold months, so you can be running that thing and just pulling in that cool air, heating it up for the dorm room. Right, you're getting fresh air in there. And by the way, I saw the pictures of the new dorms for you guys next year.
Pretty badass, right?
Dude,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna have to come to Maryland.
Yeah, and like I said, the pictures that you see online right now are just of the outside of it. Man, the inside of those facilities are going to be world class.
Incredible.
And I was telling you earlier, so we'll tell the show that I was recently, what's the right word, elected to serve as president for the ACES student board. So I'm working right now with a really great team of people from my class on a lot of student development, cybersecurity opportunities outside of the classroom environment, so kind of professional development, enrichment, whole nine yards, right? And one of the things that the student board has a lot of say on is the lab that's being built in this new facility. So we actually have some very serious funding to tinker with, and we're right now in the process of designing all the requirements for our lab, the security clearances, the hardware racks, the virtual environments, the hacking boxes, the GPU clusters. I mean, you name it, we're setting it up right now. So that's going to be really exciting. That's going to be kind of the home base for ACES cybersecurity students to work hands-on in a lab that they own as by being a member of ACES. So it'll be nice because it's in this new Northrop Grumman building that is the home for the ACES Honors College program, separate from the Maryland Cybersecurity Center and the Computer Science Department. So it'll become ACES home base, which is real. I mean, right now we're sharing out space with the engineering college. So when this transition comes in next year, that's going to be a big deal for the program. So we're starting now with making sure the lab design requirements are all there so that when it starts getting dropped in over the summer, we're ready to go. So we're looking at VMware, Hyper-V, setting up our virtual environment, and doing all sorts of neat stuff. So
very cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of watch it. I mean, we're going to get like a ground floor. I don't, if you listen to this show for any length of time, and one of all, we appreciate all the listeners that have come out and stayed with us for a long time, and I get really nice notes from you guys every week and all those things. So if you're listening to this in your car or on a walk or you're walking the dog or whatever you do when you listen to the mow the lawn, although it's getting here in the United States anyways, it's getting a little cold to do that. But we appreciate that. I think one of the cool things is we get to watch Christian kind of go through this whole experience and really see it from the ground floor. And it's a brand new program, it's a brand new facility, and we get to hear about it. So I hope you appreciate, as a listener, I hope you appreciate the kind of the look in on what he's doing here. Christian's been good enough to share that, be very open with us, and a great opportunity. Christian, we have 16 high schoolers actually on the Gallup campus for 6 Saturdays learning some code as well, and that's always fun to see kids start to get it. You'd gotten it a long time ago and have been doing a great job, but it's fun to see high school kids go, oh yeah, I can do this kind of stuff with code. I think we're going to try and get David into Omaha and do maybe a code academy or something, whatever they call that, whatever the Microsoft version of that is.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting to see that. So
Cool.
what you've been on campus for a while, any really cool things? I mean, besides all the other things that you said, any other cool stuff on campus that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. So, I mean, we talked about the launch event, I think, last time I was on the show. And really, the program has been, the stuff I've been doing directly with ACES has been a lot of the board involvement. So, and with midterms in the last couple of weeks, it's been one of those really kind of phase in, phase out processes where there's a lot going on. But really, there's always so much to see and do here. It's really incredible. Our computer science department does a really great job of having top-notch industry professionals in here. At least almost every day of the week there is either a computer science tech talk or another company doing recruiting right in the ground floor of where classes is being held. The computer science fair, like I had told you earlier, is always really great. I mean, just looking at my this CS calendar that I pull in, I mean, we have and let me backtrack a bit. Maryland's Terrapin Hackers team recently took first place out of over 100 universities, beating out Carnegie Mellon, Harvard, some of the top schools doing cybersecurity competitions, and absolutely nailed it last week. And Maryland has really been doing exceedingly well in these competitions. We also recently won the MHACs. One of our teams got first place in the MHACs competition out at the University of Michigan back in September. So we're really the program here, and that's outside of ACES too. So we have some cybersecurity teams that compete through the computer science department outside of ACES that are really kind of the upperclassmen that were here before the ACES program started, right? So and everyone's really starting to, I mean, Maryland is on the playing field as leading this effort in cybersecurity and the competition teams, and it's certainly no small feat that we took on Carnegie Mellon and MIT and some of those big schools and dished it out. So I think it really speaks to the cybersecurity is coming to Maryland, and it's pretty cool. And we see that with, like I said, the support that we've been getting from industry and watching how it progresses here every day is huge. In the presidential address from the president of the university, recently talked about a $750 million donation from Siemens to use some of the cutting-edge technology that's used on the Mars Curiosity rover. I'm not sure what distribution the funding was, actual funding versus software and donated hardware and materials, but it's really great to see how industry comes into the University of Maryland. And the University of Maryland itself is a land-grant university that was established by land-grant university, and it's really interesting to see how it once started as a land-grant university and now has kind of changed dynamics to being not only a public university, but a university that works very closely with its industry partners to really enhance the experience. That's what I'm getting in the ACES program. That's what you're seeing in the computer science department here. So it's really, I'm fortunate to be here, especially tomorrow. Like I said, I mean, tomorrow I'm going to a cybersecurity presentation by the director of the Maryland Cybersecurity Center giving a talk. We had a Google talk tonight. There's Microsoft was here, I think either this week or last week. So, I mean, there's always something to do if you want to find it. And they really do a great job of getting the best of the best here to talk to us. So.
Very cool. Christian, Rich is asking, he's pinging me behind the scenes there on Skype, and he wants you to dig in a little bit on that lab. So as you talk about this lab you guys are building, kind of give us just a picture of, and I know you don't have a lot of details yet, but just kind of paint us a picture of what you're talking about.
Yeah, so the picture is this, right? Prince Frederick Hall is going to be the high-tech, everyone's going to be envious of it. It is the dorm room on campus now. It's going to be located on South Campus. It is a combination of residence hall living on the top floors and honors college classroom environment and lab environment on the lower floors. So this ACES lab is basically think of it as a ground floor, very open space where you as a student have to have a security clearance that the board is actually helping to define what that security clearance is going to be. We're still deciding on what the policies are going to be with, well, do you have to have certain courses or certain certifications, and what your level of access is starting in the program, and so on and so forth. So at the very minimum, it's key card access to ACES students only. Your video monitored, all the equipment is very secure, so you're working and learning in a secure environment with only other people who have authorized access. When you walk into that lab, we're still not sure if we're going to have the hardware equipment kept in the Division of IT's places or if we're going to bring some of the server racks in-house. There's a concern with actually water damage because apparently every 4 or 5 years or so, some reckless kid hits a pipe or does something stupid on the upper levels that actually causes water damage on the lower floors, and they're very worried about the equipment being damaged. So we're looking into the different solutions, but we might actually just waterproof a lot of the equipment in there, so that's not a concern. But the actual hardware, we're probably looking at 4 or 5 incredibly beefy rack boxes that all create a virtualized network as if there were hundreds or even thousands of machines in that room. So one box might be running a VMware instance where there's 10 virtualized networks. Each virtualized network has 20 Linux web servers, 20 Windows servers, and all running different sorts of applications and environments. And based on your security level, you'll have access to different network portions and what networks you can work on. So the idea is that we're providing a enterprise infrastructure, an area where people can do penetration testing, they can do password cracking, they can do exploit exploit scanning. They can write and understand malicious code. They can develop honeypots to look for exploits and to defend their systems. I mean, really any cybersecurity scenario you can think of, this lab is designed to emulate it in real time and bring it on the virtual scale. We're also looking into having a GPU cluster for real-time password cracking. And one of the neat things about this honors college program is that it's interdisciplinary. So I'm a CS major. There's a handful of CS majors. There's a handful of CE majors. But we also have some criminology majors, good amount of math majors. And so because it's a 2+2 program, there's ACES 1 and ACES 2. And those interdisciplinary majors will be here for the first 2 years, and then the second 2 is pretty much technical only, from what I understand, only for CE, CS majors. But in that time, those interdisciplinary majors are also gaining the same set of technical skills that we are. So they also might have some interesting insights on what they want to see in that lab, and that's kind of part of the feedback that we're looking into. But I mean, just imagine from a hardware perspective, we're looking at each box probably being a 2 or 4 socket motherboard with, running 8 cores per CPU, at least 128 gigabytes of RAM per box. Not really sure on what we're going to do for our RAID hardware setup. I've been advocating for doing Windows Data Center and making a Hyper-V environment based on the latest R2 release of 2012, which really has some awesome enhancements to Hyper-V, and props to Microsoft on that. We've also looked into VMware, OpenStack, and NetBeans as some of the other solutions. So it's going to be a pretty robust environment.
And will it have both kind of on and off network capabilities? In other words, will we be able to isolate the networks at some point?
Yeah, so the idea is that like the different levels of access. The first one is a very virtualized, isolated network where basically anyone who has access to that isn't going to be able to do any damage if something goes afoul, right? And then you start to get up to these upper levels where we might actually work with some real-time data, or might work with some more sensitive or production data. We would call it a production environment, right, where some resources might be actually connected to the real network, some might not be. So there's going to be different tiers of that, and that kind of will fold into what security clearances end up coming out of this. But yeah, there will definitely be, I would say, at least 3 to 4 virtual networks that run within that space.
And you mentioned Windows. I assume you'll have a variety of server configurations in there using different, Linux versions and some other type of server software?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people here very big on Linux. I use Linux myself, so
Yeah.
using Windows would primarily be to get the Hyper-V environment out of it. If we don't go with Windows, it's going to probably either be VMware or OpenStack. But in any case, that virtualized environment is going to be running both Windows operating systems and Linux operating systems. So Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, Fedora. I'm trying to remember what the favorite is of the cyber guys on campus, but it's not coming to me. Probably Slackware, and then all the major Windows Server operating systems, web servers, you name it, it's going to be on there.
Christian, when we think of these kinds of environments, we often equate them with password hacking and cracking and those kinds of things. Certainly, you guys are going to do more than trying to break encryption, right? I mean, there's more to it than that, right?
Oh, there's a lot more. I would say, while I'm not very certain on this figure, that password cracking, or what you would call brute force password cracking, represents at most maybe 5 to 7% of the techniques that are used in modern cybersecurity breaches today. I mean, there's a lot of web technology exploits. There's a lot of database vulnerabilities. There's a lot of networking and TCP/IP packet hacking, DNS redirections, all sorts of interesting things. And I think the big thing here that I'm hoping to get out of the program, and I think a lot of people here are already starting to get a sense of, is reverse engineering software, actually writing code that can do some of these malicious activities, as well as learning the defensive side, which really can be harder than it seems sometimes, especially with port vulnerabilities and port injection attacks. And one of the things we'll be doing next semester is honeypot projects, where these kind of predetermined scenario-based attacks will come into this honeypot cluster, and we have to find where the attack is and plug up the hole and that kind of thing. So this offensive, defensive side, there's so many topics beyond just, oh, I brute force cracked your password, look at me. And that's not really where the ingenuity and creativity you see from hackers comes from. I mean, that's almost like a last resort. If someone's really desperate, they'll start brute force, cracking their way. But they are normally much more stealthy and silent about it than that. And actually, they were saying in this whole, just to give you, I mean, there are so many examples right now of cybersecurity vulnerabilities and exploits, and the most recent one I can think of, because I read about it this morning, was how an IT professional was on the radio this morning saying that all the source code for the new healthcare website that's been buggy and having problems is like an open highway that cybersecurity experts are just laughing at, because apparently it's very easy to pick this whole thing apart, and anyone who has signed up on this site is basically surrendering all their data. They said anyone who wants to get in there, really, it's like intermediate level hacking skills at most are required to get into that thing, especially because they know the source code. So it's really just impressive to see what the implications are for us as average users with this kind of technology. So I mean, it applies everywhere. And
go. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Dude, in a setup like this, and I know you guys don't have all the details nailed down yet, nor do I want you to give away any national security secrets as we talk through these things. But in a setup like that, is there some defense that you would employ in a setup where maybe the penetration from the outside, wireless signals, some of those kinds of things are blocked in some way, so that what you're doing inside the network is also protected?
Yeah, so actually one of the decisions that's been made is that there will be no wireless devices allowed in this lab at all. So there will be no chance of any type of wireless infiltration into this network. There's actually, all the walls are surrounded with four or 6 port jacks. There's going to be a bunch of switches in there. So wherever you plop your fanny down to start coding and doing cybersecurity, there's going to be probably 4 to 6 open ports next to you. So that we just basically took that whole risk off the table entirely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, you'll have your hands full for the next couple of years.
For sure.
It's what's going to be cool is you're going to get to see that kind of grow, right? I mean, lots of money infused in there over the next 4 years, I would imagine.
Yep. And like I said, being a first year in this program has its perks. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you're running the show already. Very nice. Well, very cool. I think there's a lot. I mean, I look forward to having this discussion. We should. The TWIT network has security now. We should have our own. Maybe we should have our own security program where you get to talk about this stuff full time.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in the thick of it. We talked about way back when we had talked about getting your NASA buddies to come on the podcast as well. So maybe we can figure out a way when you're ready to hook up with some of the students there and invite them on the podcast to kind of pick their brain and see what they're doing. All right. Well, very cool.
It's actually National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so you should read up on your cybersecurity newsletters, because every government agency is putting them, and I'm getting many in my inbox.
now that they're back to work.
Yeah. Right. So that was a nice repast from my work. I was considered. I'm on FY13 for one of my primary tasks, so I was able to work for some time during the shutdown. But I mean, there was virtually no one at NASA, so there's some time to catch up on school for sure.
Well, some time to get some homework done.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I think I was in California during that time, and was at USC, and I was watching some TV, and I went to the NASA channel, and it was broadcasting. So it's not like it was shut down, but it had that due to the government shutdown, all activities, I was like, I wonder how it costs just as much to put that up as it probably does to run.
I mean, I mean, actually, NASA.gov and all that stuff is taken down pretty much any. I think there were only a very few NASA websites that survived. One of which, bizarrely enough, was JPL's NASA. JPL.nasa.gov was up, and that's probably because it's mostly a contractor-run thing. But I mean, if couldn't use our email, had to put the notices that says, due to lapse in funding, I can't respond to your request. If this is an
That's
emergency,
so
call this
crazy.
number. And wasn't a lot of, it's nuts.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy. But you're back now, right? You're
back to
back at
work,
work.
yeah. Actually,
Good.
next Friday I'm going to taking a trip down to the research center to do some on-site support. We're at the phase of installing the Hadoop cluster, so I, as the lead on that, want to be there to kind of get that ball rolling. So it's going to be a nice little trip out of college. So, all right, I'm going back to my question stack here. Do we have SDN planned for the lab? Right now, software-defined networking, it's not 100% certain yet. Like I said, I think most of it's going to be virtualized, but we actually have a lab liaison who sits on the board right now that's going to help with some of those decisions. So there will be a lot of virtualized simulation of software throughout the stack of stuff. So I would expect a lot more virtualized than hardware, but there will still be some hardware on site. Do you expect to take a crack at examining any encryption algorithms for a backdoor? Yeah, most probably. I mean, right now, we've started off with like the basic sequence of cryptology. So that cryptology, there's a whole course sequence at the university in cryptology that will probably give us most of the skills that eventually get to that level, but I don't think anyone in the group is at that place right now. Yes, I do have a roommate, and they're all starting to pour back in now from the Jimmy Gaffigan comedian show. He was here at campus tonight, so they were all in massive numbers there. Let's see. Oh, are you network simulation, capital budget for the lab? So we're looking at around a $200,000 budget to put together the lab, so not too shabby. Definitely a lot of stuff we can do with that, and that number is flexible. So we're really working with the university to try and keep that in a good range. How big are class sizes? To be honest, it really depends. So most of the 100, 200 level classes, like in general university comp sci, can be anywhere from 75 to 250 plus people. For example, the Calc 2 lecture here is like 250 plus people. If you're in an honors class version of a course, they can't put more than 30 people in it. So you can end up taking honors versions of those same huge lectures where there's like 20 guys in it. For any cybersecurity class, it's pretty much 25. The lecture is 50, and then we break up into 25 and 25 for our actual work group sessions. So again, nice small environment. I think that's
Okay.
That's all
Very
we got
cool.
on the stack.
Yeah, very very nice way to cover for me. I could see you because I had the broadcast server running here. I couldn't get to it. I mean, I was trying to get you through to. That's why I was pointing this way. It was like go to the chat window. I'm trying to chat with you, and I couldn't. So the computer's working. Mouse Without Borders was working, but Chrome completely crashed, and it became completely unresponsive. And I had about 10 or 12 Chrome windows open, and the whole thing just went and I couldn't do anything. But it definitely came back. So.
And I do need to add, Rich, I don't have a favorite Pop-Tart flavor because it's normally not composed as part of my diet.
How's the food?
Food's actually pretty good. I'll be honest. I mean, just to give you an example, we had lobster night here last night where it was like $5, like extremely discounted, where it was like pretty good lobster with, it was a good deal. So they have some really good dining services here. Once a week you get all you can eat buffet service. Like I said, they do those special fish nights. We had Oktoberfest a couple of days ago, so dining's pretty quality here. They rival some of the best dining that there is in university life in general. So it's really kind of hard to go wrong with food here.
Very cool. I need to go back to school. I'm coming. You got a room? You got any? You got a hideaway bed in there or something?
Yeah, yeah.
I could crash
I mean,
on.
especially next year at Northrop Grumman's dorm there, we'll have some space.
I'm sure Gary would charge me rent if I was gonna stay in there. Gary didn't join us tonight. Where's he at?
Good question. I might have not told him about that I was hopping on tonight,
He
but
knows the deal. He
yeah,
normally just joins us.
yeah.
Well, anybody who's wondering who Gary
So,
is, that's Christian's dad, and so he's typically out in the chat room causing trouble out there. But all right, very cool. Well, Christian, let's bring this part in for a landing, and thanks for making some time tonight
sure.
to pull this together. Very cool to have David Washington on from Microsoft.
Absolutely.
And we're going to get him back on the show as well. Hopefully, you got a chance last week. I had Michael Crump on, and Michael is a contractor. He's a developer, works on all three platforms, both iPhone, Android, and Windows Phone. We actually got during the show last week. You didn't hear it. You had to listen to the live show to hear it, but we actually got the Lumia 520 updated to GDR3. So he walked me through the process of putting GDR3 on the phone. You can't get that through the carriers just yet, and in some cases, but he got that on the phone. I also mentioned in last week's show, and you can see it right here, I'm working on, this is actually a Windows Phone app that I'm working on, and it has the podcast on it. So if you want to see the videos that we produce each week, there they are. And then it's got a breakout. Let's see if I can do this. It's got I just touched the video. That's not good.
Jim writing his own application? Wow.
Holy cow. Is that really happening?
Is this your own written application?
This is my own written application.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah, look at that here. So there's the video section, right? So this is on Windows Phone only at this point, but there's videos, and then there's the home tech feed if you want to go in there and get the audio for that. And there's financial tech if you want to get the audio for that. And then there's Rich's random podcast generator right there. Look at that. Look how sweet that is. And then, of course, if you want to know everything there is to know about that, I should do it that way so you can see it better. So, yeah, actually, Microsoft provides a nice little developer UI that you can just do on the web. No code involved, because Christian, I wouldn't do this. I
was going to say, this is pretty unusual.
But, hey, think about this. A pretty impressive app for no code, and I've got a podcast. It's the Average Guy podcast app, right, to come out, get it. You can, like I said, you can get our RSS feed, so everything that's coming out there. If you're a video guy, you can watch the videos online, which, by the way, YouTube works dynamite on Windows Phone. Just there's a native player for it embedded. It just works on there. And then if you want to just listen to the various podcasts, you can click on those, and it will go to. I hope it doesn't play automatically. You can go to those as well. I've got some work to do on it, and several of you have said that you would test it. You would help me test it in its beta form. And so if you're still interested in doing that, send me an email, podcast@theaverageguy or jim@theaverageguy.tv. I'm hoping in the next couple weeks I get a few minutes to kind of work on that. I do, and if you know any C# or Visual Studio, and you want to help me out with that, I can actually just drop the code right to you, and Visual Studio just pick it up, and you can make all kinds of changes to it. So I thought that'd be pretty cool to have our own Windows Phone app that's out there. And here's the good news, Christian. To get it in the store, $20. That's it. $20. No $99 fee that you get for iPhone, and I think Android's cheaper than that. But
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
$20 to get it in the Windows Phone store, and you would get a chance to download that and get the podcast. And it does need some work. Not everything's working quite the way I want it to, but
sure.
That worked out pretty cool. So we're doing that as well. The Amazon Scholarship Fund is going gangbusters. I got to tell you, we're having a record month here at theaverageguy.tv. You guys have responded, and last check, I had about $148 in credit for just this month alone, and we still got a whole week left. We take those dollars that you spend, we turn those around into what we call the Tech Scholarship Fund. And it's basically something you've been wanting to test, but maybe you don't have the money in your tech scholarship or your tech fund to pay for it. So we buy it for you here at theaverageguy.tv. We buy it for you. I ship it to you. U.S. only for now. I haven't figured out the international piece of this yet, but U.S. only. You test it. You give me 2 posts and come on the podcast, and you get to keep it. So, not a bad. If you've been wanting to try something, not a bad way to get it. You guys have responded, been buying stuff on Amazon using our Amazon affiliate link. If you go to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, whatever trigger is there, we tripped it, and you guys it's doubled what we've done every other month. We actually have a couple items out right now. So Brad is testing actually an Alesis board for me. It's a four-port board if you're a podcaster or thinking about podcasting, or you just want better sound quality out of your computer. This is a USB-driven soundboard you can plug into your computer. I have an Alesis Multimix 8. This is the Multimix 4. About $79, and he's got some posts coming up on it that will be out at theaverageguy.tv/live. So if you're wanting to know what it takes to put a mixer in place, you can do that for less than $100. And with these ATR 2100s, by the way, theaverageguy.tv/Amazon if you're going to buy those. But these ATR 2100s are $35. So for a little over $100, you can get a pretty nice setup that turns your Skype or your Google Plus into just really nice audio. And so those are available. We'll have that review coming up, and then I think as soon as they become available, we're going to ship Gordon one of those new Nest smoke detectors. Right? You've heard of a Nest thermostat, but have you heard of the Nest smoke detector? Right?
I haven't.
You haven't heard? So it's really cool. It looks really nice, very nice design. And you know how when your smoke detector goes off in your house, and at first it's blaring at you, right? And
Sure.
then you need to find out how to shut it off, and the buttons are always embedded deeper than your fat finger can get to the shut off button. And you eventually, what do? You take the cover off, you rip the battery out, and then you never put the battery back in because anyways. So Nest has taken a whole new approach to this with the smart detector. You can actually just go up to it and wave your hand over it, and it shuts off.
Not bad.
So those are not yet. They announced those 3-4 weeks back, and they're not in production yet. They're supposed to be coming out here in the next couple weeks. So we'll get one of those, ship those to Gordon, and he'll be doing a review. And then hopefully, I think by now Nathaniel has picked up his Wi-Fi. It's a Western Digital Wi-Fi enabled hard drive that he's going to put in his car, and then test it out by taking his kids out, and they're going to try to connect to it with all their iPads and stream movies directly from this hard drive device mounted in the car. So we're not a brand new concept, but we're going to give that a shot. So pretty cool. So we got some good, cool stuff coming up on the. You have enough stuff to do there, Christian. You don't need the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund. You've got the University of Maryland. Well, you need a scholarship fund there, don't you?
That is true, but we'll get there.
You're a walk-on there, and hopefully they'll pick you up on scholarship here soon enough. Tell your roommate we said hi. No, don't do that. He'll feel awkward that he's coming to the back of the podcast. Anything else, Christian, as we wrap this up?
No, not really. Hopefully I'll have some. I think it would be good to get some cybersecurity folks from here on the show to talk. If folks are interested, of course. So there was some secret communication on the live chat suggesting that we could spin off Christian's Corner into a whole nother podcast in and of itself, which is true because I do love to ramble, so it might be like Christian's ramble something.
Ramblings.
Yeah, Christian's ramblings. There you go. But
I like it. I like it a lot.
But so stuff's coming up. Looking forward to this trip next week. But yeah, that's a wrap for me.
Okay. I want to put you regular hosts on alert, guys like Rich O'Neill and Mike Howard and Bill Pullman and Rennie, and we haven't seen Andrew in a while. We haven't seen you in a while, and I haven't been very aggressive either about getting you guys on the show. We've had lots of things filling up our time, but as we get into 2014, we're going to try and get you back on and get some things rejuvenated. Home tech is not going anywhere. We've been talking about partnering more with what Dave's doing. Dave McCabe is doing over at Home Service Show. He's got a new network going over there, and so we've been talking about some partnership there. But so far, Home Tech is alive and well. If you want to see what I'm doing from an enterprise podcasting standpoint, you can head over to coaching.gallup.com, and our enterprise podcast around strengths coaching and what we do at Gallup is just doing gangbusters. 500-600 live still. We did a podcast out of Singapore a couple weeks ago. We did one out of New Zealand just last week. And so we're having a great time over there. So if you're interested in any of that, head over coaching.gallup.com and to give you an idea. Same kind of podcast idea, just different topic. as we go. If you're new to listening to podcasts, we also encourage you to head out to Stitcher, although most of you guys have your own ways of downloading podcasts. But in case you don't and you're not getting it every single week, Stitcher.com, of course, is an easy way to get it on your Android, iPhone, or any other web platform available. And you can subscribe to the podcast there, and it will be available whenever you want to listen to it. Stitcher's a nice platform because they're starting to get more and more new vehicles, at least here in the United States. Go to Stitcher.com, search Home Tech. We say here it's education for your ears. Also a reminder, you can also find the podcast over at Spreaker and Podomatic, Audio Boo FM. We're in iTunes. We're on the Xbox Marketplace, or wherever great podcasts are found. We are there as well. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube, which I encourage you to do. I'm in a little contest with Mike Howard to get subscription numbers, so help me get those subscription numbers up. Just head over to theaverageguy.tv/YouTube, or catch the show each week right here live, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern at theaverageguy.tv live. We got a couple groups available for you as well. Our Facebook group, which is alive and well, theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. Our Google Plus group, which nobody is using right now, but it's theaverageguy.tv/Google. And don't forget to use the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund at theaverageguy.tv/Amazon when purchasing from Amazon, and that supports the giveaways. And again, thanks for doing that. We have a record month going on out there, and I appreciate it. Be very transparent about what we do with that, guys. I'm going to tell you exactly what we bought, exactly who it's going to, and we expect great posts back from those folks that are doing that. We'll do it all again next Thursday, I think. I should have looked ahead to make sure that I think next Thursday will be fine, and we'll see you back here again. Thanks for listening, and join us live. Appreciate it. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Hello? Hello? Jim? Hello?
Wow.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
1 second. I'm shutting down. Look at your look up. Let's see. Hold on. Go this way. Look up there. In the
Oh, wait, he left again. What the heck? All right, so I don't know if anyone can hear me on this. Can anyone hear me? Anyone? I think I'm broadcasting. Yeah, I'm broadcasting. All right, so this is the part of the show where Jim has decided to abandon me, and so I'll take questions and chat until he otherwise decides to return. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, unlimited questions, so take advantage of it. I did not DDoS Jim Collison. I actually don't know where he went. I think there was a reboot involved in that, but I can assure you that wasn't my doing. The weather is actually pretty cold. Like I said, it's been helping to cool down my box, but compared to what it is in Buffalo normally, this is nothing, so that's enjoyable. Come on, we gotta have better questions out in chat than that. Let's get creative. Come on, Rich, it's your turn.
Hey, can you?
Oh, and he's back. I was running the Christian's Corner segment of the show where I take questions from the audience, and
I don't know what happened here. I all of a sudden I lost everything on the server or on my studio PC here. Like, so hold on, let me see if it's working again. Yeah, like Chrome absolutely came apart on me. I mean, it was just like it was gone. So let me get logged back in here. Good for you for getting on Christian's Corner there. You keep going, I'll get logged in.
all right.